Hello everyone, and today we're going to be asking the question, does wah sound better before or after your dirt pedals? This is going to be part of a new series called Guitar Tone Tested, where I test guitar tone things and just kind of come up with ideas of questions that you may have and test them. Now, let's just get this out of the way. With all the different pedals that are out there, there's no way to know exactly how every scenario is going to be. However, there are some overall answers that we can get. Even with simple one-time tests, especially when we use pedals that are, things that are very commonly used. So let's get into the info portion of what we need to know. The wah pedal that we'll be using is the classic Crybaby Wah. This is the model GCB95. This is basically the most classic model as far as I know. It's basically at least the most affordable. I think this is the lowest end wah pedal, and most times you can find these used for like $60, and they don't really appreciate in value with age like some other pedals do. You can get one from the 80s and it will be the same as one made in 2002 or closer to when we are 2010 or 2020, whatever. But yeah, basically you can get these for cheap, and it is a classic wah, a classic circuit sound, and it works with a potentiometer, not magnets or whatever fancy stuff that newer wahs do. For our grit, I will be having 3 different options for the main types of grit that I know of. We will have Overdrive, which will be represented by the Ibanez TS9 Tube Screamer. This is the full-size one, not the mini, though the mini and the full-size probably sound the same. Either way, this is what our representation of Overdrive. Distortion is kind of a hard pick, but I think that the one that is going to be the most well-rounded is the Boss Metal Zone. The Boss Metal Zone is a hated pedal, but it also is a very versatile pedal and can give you just a decent, at least, metal tone if you put everything at noon. And then our final dirt will be fuzz. We will be using the Dunlop I guess it'll just be the Dunlop silicone fuzz face. This is the simple, regular silicone. This isn't the Jimi Hendrix version or anything like that. And this will be our representation of fuzz because it's basically the only fuzz pedal that I have. Now, one thing to know about the fuzz face is that it usually requires it to be the first thing in your pedal chain before a buffer, before a tuner, and before a wah pedal. Otherwise, the signal starts to degrade even further because that's just how the circuit kind of works. It's something with resistances, impedances, all that sort of stuff. So a better example might have been a Big Muff, but like I said, this is one of the only fuzzes that I have, if not the only fuzz I have. So I don't have a Big Muff, unfortunately. Not having a Big Muff makes me big sad. So anyway, we're gonna eventually get one, but right now this is all we have to work with, and I think it'll still be interesting. It'll be kind of close to what Jimi Hendrix actually kind of used, I think, because he used wah, a Crybaby Wah, and a fuzz face, but eventually he made his own custom one, but whatever. Now you have all the details of what we're going to be using. I will be recording, since that's a big issue, is mic placement. I'll be recording with an Audio-Technica 2020 microphone. It will be placed in the center of the room, in the center, pushed back from my Boss Katana 2x12 combo amplifier to try and capture the full sound of both speakers. I think that I got a decent, well-rounded sound. It may be a little bit bass heavy, but it seemed like it was pretty close when I was trying to listen through my headphones, but they're also not reference headphones. They don't have expensive stuff, or super expensive stuff. Okay, let's finally get some stuff plugged in. Okay, so we have our camera right here. You can kind of see it, unfortunately, but it gets a great view of what my foot situation is looking like. And you can see that we are just starting with the wah pedal to get a bassline tone, see how that sounds. So, turn on the amplifier and see what our clean tone sounds like for the people who care. We'll be using the middle pickup on our guitar here. So there is our clean tone. Let me go and get my tuner to make sure that that you actually have something enjoyable to listen to. All right, now we have our guitar in tune. Let's turn on the wah and see what there is to hear. Alright, so for those who don't know, what a wah essentially is a very centered tone control. And as you move your foot, you move where the tone control, where the center of that tone control is on your audio spectrum. And so another important thing to know is, we're going to say this a lot throughout this series, is that whatever pedal is last in your chain, that is turned on of course, is going to be the one that your tone takes on the most characters of. So basically what I'm saying is, if you want more wah effect, you want it after, but with wahs like this, it can be kind of too much. So then if you put it before, you'll be able to tame that a little bit more, because it'll be a little more subdued by the tone of the next pedal. But let's show that in action. That's a lot of noise. That's a bit weird. There we go. My one chord there seems to be having issues. So let's turn on the Ibanez Overdrive, or Ibanez TS9 Overdrive, and dial in a tone. So this is the Ibanez TS9 with the tone at noon and the drive at noon, and the level being where it needs to be for my recording. We're going to start with the wah in front of the overdrive, and then we will try it after. This is not going to be a super scientific test, because it's hard to play the exact same thing again, plus I would have to remember it, which I definitely don't remember what I played last time. So anyway. Okay, so that was with wah before drive, which is how I prefer to use it typically. But now let's try it after. Okay, looks like we don't have a noise issue with the way I have that last plug plugged in currently. We are using the same settings on the overdrive, because all that we want to test is how it sounds with the wah now after the drive pedal. Alright, so with not much drive, this actually sounds pretty cool. And it sounds actually better, in my opinion, after the light drive pedal. So that's kind of an interesting little find here. So, what I'm actually going to try here is turning up the drive on the Ibanez Distortion, seeing if it still sounds that good to me. Okay. It got bassier, I think. That's one thing for sure. But let's try it with the wah now. Alright, so there was a little bit of a section towards the start that I think that got a little harsh, but it's not still like overly burdening the tone in my from what I was hearing. I don't know how different it sounds in the recording, but yeah, nothing too offensive yet. But we are going to be moving on to distortion, which I have more experience with, so let's see how that goes. To make things a little bit easier, I have put the distortion in front of the wah because that's how we left it. So I'm going to do that first just to get that out of the way so I don't have as many steps unplugging and replugging things in. I have put the tones at noon. The distortion is at like 3 o'clock. And the level I will still have to try and see where it needs to be. Alright, so we are using now the Boss Metal Zone. Now, I don't know if it's this distortion specifically, because this is the distortion I use a lot, mainly right now. But these tone controls are the reason why people do not like it. They are very powerful and you can mess things up very quickly. And because of that, I believe that the very powerful EQ on the Metal Zone might not mesh well with the very powerful just function of what a wah is. So let's try this, but it's gonna get louder and probably a bit too harsh. Very cool. So in my room, this is my kind of like workshop area room that I've kind of taken over. In my actual room where I practice a lot more often, I use a Line 6 Spider 4 small amplifier. I believe it was the Line 6 Spider 415, and that does not play well with its tone controls as well, so it was a little more harsh on that amplifier, a little bit better here, but of course I think the harshness also gets amplified in the recording, but we'll see. Okay, so my theory on why that it sounded harsher in the room is, one, because of how the sound projects and then bounces off the walls, reflections and all of that, and then also it depends on where you are sitting compared to the amplifier. On top of that, the microphone usually does amplify the high end and low end, maybe not the mids, but it sounded okay to me. But it is a little more controlled when you are able to control the sound coming out after. So maybe that has something to do with it too. And in real life, you can't control the volume as it's happening. I mean, obviously you can if you adjust knobs, but that's not the point I'm making. Anyway, it has something to do with all the sound physics and stuff, and that's why it sounds more harsh to me in the room at that moment than it does now in our recording here. So yeah, let's switch these around and see what that sounds like. Alright, so we have Wah before Metal Zone. Seems that there is a little bit of a whistle happening from my power supply, I believe, but that is not part of the sound here. So just a little bit of a refresher on what the Metal Zone sounds like normally. Alright, so now with Wah before the distortion. Alright, so it partially occurs to me that a top-down view might not be the best way to be able to view what's actually happening with the wah pedal. I apologize for that, but I think that's still a good demonstration of what the audible changes are, the tonal changes are. And that whistling is kind of annoying. I guess that's something with the power filtering. Yeah, so that was that. Let's move on to our last example. Okay, so here we have the fuzz face coming after the wah pedal. Now keep in mind, again, the fuzz face is a bit temperamental with other pedals coming before it, so this is a little bit of a flawed execution. However, I still think it may be able to demonstrate what we need to hear here, because even though it doesn't function the same as being in position 1, it still can have a pedal or two before it really just craps out. So let's turn it on, see what we hear, see what there is to hear. I actually had to turn down the, it didn't really change it much, but I had to turn down the fuzz face, which I bet you that's the first time you've ever heard that. And I believe the fuzz is turned down just a little bit. We'll just turn the fuzz all the way up, because that's the way that people usually use fuzz faces. So here's a bit of the fuzz face on its own. Since this is the silicone fuzz face, it's a little less fuzzy, a little more distortion. The silicone works really well to keep some integrity compared to germanium, which is the red version. And then everyone's always like, germanium's the best, which, I don't know. Anyway, as you can also hear, even though we have a pedal in front of it, it still sounded really good, and its integrity was still really there really well. So now let's try the wah pedal in front of the fuzz face. Let me just move these over a little bit so that they're betterly framed. Doesn't really matter because it's already zoomed out. All right, let's do this. Okay, so some interesting results here. I don't know exactly all the things that are at play here. There's the tonal characteristics of this pedal and all that, but you can't really hear the wah. At least it's not even like a sweep. It's either it's maxed out or it's not. So either you get the kind of drawn back, kind of hummy and buzzy, or you get the kind of quacky, kind of high-pitched sound. But to me, there isn't much in between. Very interesting and strange to me. And that just comes down to how the fuzz face filters sound and all that sort of stuff. So let's put the fuzz face before the wah and see how that works. Oh crap. Oh, this patch cable's getting a bit abused right now because of these weird jacks. Getting a little twisted up. Okay, so now we have the fuzz before the wah. Let's see how that works differently. So I think there might be like a little more volume to the fuzz face now, but there's not much difference. Even though it is now the first pedal in the pedal order, it is directly connected to my guitar. Alright, so it's very interesting because you get two very different results with the fuzz face, at least. With the wah in front of the fuzz face, it really, the fuzz face subdues the wah sound. With the wah coming after the fuzz face, the wah sound is free to reign over your tone and can make it a little too high pitched or too low pitched. But that can also change depending on how you play with it. But yeah, I would definitely probably personally prefer the wah after the fuzz, not to mention the rule of having the fuzz face first. This may be different with the Big Muff. Maybe I will make a short in the future about that, so get subscribed for that. You just have to probably remind me as well. But yeah, that is all of our options for now, at least, of should your wah go in front or behind your dirt. I've given 3 major options. I could make another one about specifically overdrives, but I don't have every kind of like major architecture of overdrive either, so I'm not really equipped to do that. Let me know if that would be something you'd be interested in. Yeah, so that is the end of the video. This channel is normally a music and now also 3D printing channel. I do majority of guitar related content along with some 3D printing related content just because it's been kind of a thing that I need to talk about, especially also is a lot more of the popularity of this channel. So if all that sounds good, please consider subscribing. There's also some random content here and there whenever I feel like. I did a board game review recently of Scream the game, and it was, mid-tier, so go watch that if you're interested in board games. Tell me how I did. If you have any other ideas for this guitar tone tested concept, please let me know. I will be doing some more of the basics, like some modulations before and after dirt, and some other little ones that I thought of here and there. So once again, if that all sounds good, please consider subscribing. That's all I have to say for now, so I'm going to say bye-bye.